Hey there, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm16-Bit, and I got a good show for this week because we're going to be talking about GTA 6 rumors, former IDOS boss talks about Square Enix, and Nightdive Studios teases some future games, plus more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and I'll be with you in a bit. Alright folks, we're back, and now it's time to start the show with my favorite segment, your favorite segment, everyone in the world's favorite segment. It's time for the Gaming Forecast. So let's see what's coming out between the week of August 7th to the 13th. Okay, on August 8th, you have one game coming out, Tyrant's Blessing for Windows and Nintendo Switch. And then on August 9th, you have two games, Timothy and the Tower of Mu for Windows, and 2 Point Campus for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Then on the 10th, you have Lost in Play for Windows and Nintendo Switch. And on August 11th, you have 5 games coming out. Arcade Paradise for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Axiom Verge 2 for Linux. Cult of the Lamb for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Rumbleverse for Windows, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Series X. And Undernaut's Labyrinth of Yomi for PS5. Then on the 12th, you have 2 games coming out. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered for Windows, and Super Bullet Break for Windows, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. And that was your gaming forecast. Some interesting stuff there. Axiom Verge definitely has my interest. Now, before we begin on to the first topic, I just want to talk about the music of the show for a bit. Now, it's nothing bad. Don't worry. It's not like anyone talked to me about anything, but it was just something, kind of something I realized right after last week's episode was uploaded. And I'm not sure if anyone realizes this, but when it comes to the music, I leave links in the description of every video to the music I use. I also credit all the artists and put the titles up there and everything. And that's something I've been doing since the first episode. If you go back and watch it, you can go down the description, you can find there's links for all the music I use. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I after last week's episode, I kind of realized I don't think anyone really knows that. Like, does anyone actually know that in the description there's all the music? There's also sources. I leave all the sources I use for every story in the description. So just wanted to clear that up, just so no one thinks that like I'm using music and not crediting anyone or anything like that. But it is something that just kind of like, it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute, does anyone know this? And I just wanted to just make that clear. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our first topic. Okay, so for our first story, well, there's no way around it. We got to talk about GTA 6. I'm sure you've all heard about it, but for those who haven't, recently Bloomberg put out an article written by Jason Schreier. So take anything I'm about to say with a grain of goddamn salt. Keep in mind, this is the guy that got Kotaku blacklisted from Bethesda and Ubisoft, okay? But apparently, according to him, changes since about 2018 have been made within Rockstar, and because of, well, at least the corporate culture within Rockstar. And apparently, because of that, GTA 6 not only is going to have a female protagonist, but it will also be much more toned down in terms of its jokes. Now, understand, like I said, that these are rumors, okay? That's it. These are simply rumors. Take it with a grain of salt, because I've seen a lot of people going around basically saying that this has been confirmed, and yet none of this has actually been confirmed. So, like I said, take it with a grain of salt whenever you hear sort of rumors like this. But I will say this, it is a bit worrying, because we have seen some small changes made within Rockstar, some of their games. For example, and he mentions this in the articles, and it has been mentioned before this article was actually posted, that, for example, in GTA Online, the Cops and Crooks mode was completely removed after the whole George Floyd riots, George Floyd killing, and the riots that happened thereafter. And then you had some trans jokes that were removed from the more recent releases of GTA 5 on PS5 and Xbox Series X. So there is some backing behind it, but again, like I said, take what's being said with a grain of salt here. Still, though, I am a bit worried about the idea of a more toned-down GTA. The whole point of the franchise is to make fun of everything. It is supposed to be a satirical look at American society and politics and such. That's it. That's what it's always been. GTA has taken shots at everyone in this country. Left, right, center, unaffiliated, doesn't matter. Everyone gets made fun of. That's the joke. It's basically the South Park rule. Okay? South Park makes fun of everyone. They don't hold back. All right? That's the point of South Park. Everyone equally gets made fun of. They're equal opportunity offenders. It's been like that since the first game. And so to tone down Grand Theft Auto I couldn't imagine that. Not only that's, you know what it is? That's a win for Jack Thompson. Okay? Because he for years was bitching and complaining about GTA. Remember, GTA was the poster child for everyone that hated violent video games. You saw it all the time on the news. Parents and politicians bitching about anything Rockstar put out. Okay? Grand Theft, my parents used to watch like stuff like 2020 and such. And they would have special reports about Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City. And oh my God, this game where you can steal cars and buy hookers and then run over them and steal their money. Okay? They did the same thing with Manhunt. I remember them actually calling Manhunt a murder simulator, even though it's basically a stealth game where you're trying to kill and hunt down. Well, you're trying to hunt down like gang members. Okay? Deranged gang members. Okay? Like, it was the poster child for everyone that hated violent games. So to see Grand Theft Auto basically capitulate to that is, in my opinion, a huge loss. Now, granted, I'm saying that if this is true. I'm not saying that this is true. I'm just saying if it's true, it will be a huge loss. They're also saying how it'll have a female protagonist and it'll be a franchise first. Folks, and this especially goes to the people at Rockstar, I hate to break it to you, but you ain't the first. You're not. I know a lot of people like to think that this is the first time a female protagonist has been in a Grand Theft Auto game, but it isn't. There have been female protagonists in Grand Theft Auto. Going back to the very first game, the original Grand Theft Auto on PC had 8 playable characters. Okay? 2 of them were women. In the PlayStation 1 version, it was 4 playable characters. I think only one of them was actually a woman. And then you had the Game Boy Color version, which had completely different characters. And again, 2 of them were women. So when I hear people say, oh my God, this is series first, and you have idiots basically praising this and such and going on about how this is a series first. It goes to show that a lot of people haven't really played the GTA games. I think most people's experience with GTA games has been everything from 3 and onward. I don't think most people have played GTA 1 and 2. 2, okay, you know, there's I think the main protagonist, there's only one main protagonist and that's it. But GTA 1, the original, you had 8 characters on the PC version, 4 on the PlayStation. So, yeah, it's not anything new. Okay? Like I said, you're going to have idiots going on and on saying, "Oh my god, this is a series first." It's not a series first, folks. It isn't. And I say to the people who go on and on about, who think like that somehow means anything, okay? Because to me it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't fucking matter if the series has a female protagonist or not. I see people as that people who care about that shit as complete morons. They're idiots, okay? They're people who are more interested in identity politics than actually, you know, than actually playing good games. All right. And so it's funny to me whenever I see these people go on and on about this. And it's like, you know absolutely nothing about this franchise, do you? Absolutely goddamn nothing. So anyway, I would, like I said, take anything you're reading here with a grain of salt. Understand that like I said, it's written by someone who has a history. It's published by a news organization that has a history of making claims about games and then later on turning out to be complete bullshit. Remember, folks, Bloomberg is the exact same media organization that a couple of years ago claimed Nintendo was planning to release the Switch Pro. Don't worry, guys. Switch Pro is coming. It's going to come later this year. It's going to happen, guys. And it didn't happen. So, like I said, when Bloomberg says shit, take it with a grain of salt. When Jason Schreier says something, take it with a goddamn dump truck full of salt, okay? So, anyway, with that being said, I think I've talked long enough about this. Let's move on to our next topic. Okay, this next one I thought was actually really cool. So, I'm sure many of you remember the Simpsons Hit and Run. It was a fun little GTA-style game set in the Simpsons universe. I never had it, but I knew people who did, and I did play it occasionally at their houses. I had the Game Boy Advance version, though, and that was all right. Well, it seems one person has decided to take it upon himself to completely remaster the game. A YouTuber by the name of El Gato del Tejado, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has been working on a fan remaster of the entire thing. And when I say a remaster, we're not just talking like an upscale, you know, like a much more upscale version where you have some like HD textures here and there. Oh, no. He is going one step further by completely overhauling all the graphics. So, for example, 2D textures are now much more higher definition, though I did notice that there was a misspelling because I think he was using AI upscaling in some of them. Because like there's one where it's like don't eat beef. It says it's supposed to say don't eat beef, but unfortunately it says don't eat thief. So I guess that was just a problem with the upscaling, so he needs to work on that a bit. But even the character textures are completely redone to more align with their animated counterparts. In fact, he's also added thick outlines on the characters to look like the animated series. On top of that, he is also going as far as to completely redraw and animate the CG cutscenes, because in the original game, the cutscenes were entirely done with entirely pre-rendered with 3D character models. This time, however, he's decided to go back and actually rotoscope all of them in the style of the TV series. Now, if you don't know what rotoscoping is, it's basically a form of animation where you take a pre-filmed video, whatever, and you draw over it. You're basically tracing, but you can add more onto that, and it's mostly done to give it more fluid animation. Now, obviously, trying to basically create new character models to then redo all the cutscenes would take a little bit more effort. But this time what he's decided to do is just basically go each frame by frame and redraw them in the style of the animated series. And I gotta say, it's impressive how professional this looks. Keep in mind, when you're looking at the stuff, it's from one guy. This isn't from an entire team. So, Granted, he is coming into some issues. For example, when it comes to Lisa's in-game model, he's having some problems with that, with her hair. But for the most part, the rest of it looks fantastic. It looks like it's really coming together, and I look forward to seeing when this entire thing is done. So yeah, if you're impressed with the work he's done, and if you're interested in seeing any more updates, I'll highly recommend you go check out his YouTube channel. I'll leave a link in the description, and give him give him a visit, because dude is doing a fantastic job with this. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
In a city where chaos rules, only one man can save humanity from total destruction. Woohoo! It's up to Homer Simpson and family to save the world from a diabolical plot as they run and drive to unravel the conspiracy.
Blackfinch!
Critics call it the best Simpsons game ever.
Get the Lord, dude.
The Simpsons Hit and Run, rated T for teen.
I am evil Homer.
Alright folks, we're back in. First up on our next round of stories, we gotta talk about Square Enix. So recently, GameIndustry.biz did an interview with IDOS Montreal founder Stéphane D'Astuce. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Who had been with the company up until he left in 2013. And they asked him, of course, because of the recent sale of Eidos to Embracer Group, they decided to talk to him about that as well, and about behind the scenes, a lot of the stuff that had been going on under ownership of Square Enix. And he had something very interesting to say. Basically, he described it as a complete train wreck. He said, and I quote, "It was a train wreck in slow motion to my eyes. Anyway, it was predictable that the train was not going in a good direction." And basically, at one point, he actually recalled a meeting about the company's financial performance for 2012, where apparently Square Enix expected Eidos to generate $65 million in profit that year. But instead, he was actually told that they had lost $65 million that year. And he says, and I quote, "We were dumbfounded, especially because my studio didn't have any deliverables for that year." And basically, he began receiving messages from other members worrying about the fate of the studio and such. And he later on said, and I quote, "The pressure was starting to build in my employees towards me, and me towards my superiors. I think when people are in a crisis situation where there's a lot of situations, you do see their core behavior or values. And I didn't like what I saw. There was really a lack of leadership, courage, and communication. And when you don't have those basic things, no employee can do their job correctly, especially when you're heading a studio." He later on said, "I was losing hope that Square Enix Japan would bring great things to Eidos. I was losing confidence in my headquarters in London. In their annual fiscal reports, Japan always added one or two phrases saying we were disappointed with certain games. They didn't reach expectations, and they did that strictly for certain games that were done outside Japan." Now, here's what's interesting, is that this isn't anything new. I've talked about this before. A few months ago, when I first talked about the Eidos purchase, the Eidos sale, about how IO Interactive was held to the same standards. Every game they put out was basically written off as a disappointment by Square Enix. They were held to these unrealistic standards. And I remembered something. Do you guys remember Sleeping Dogs? I remember it. Unfortunately, I never got around to playing it, but I remember it being really popular. People love that game. And it was actually a sleeper hit. It came right out of nowhere and ended up selling 1.5 million units within its first month. So it actually did quite well. However, because I remember when this happened, Square Enix still wrote it off as a disappointment, because apparently they were expecting it to sell 5 million units within its first month. Now, here's the funny thing, okay? They're holding this game up to an incredibly unrealistically high standards. Standards they don't hold the games that they make internally in Japan. You know why? Because only a few years earlier, when Final Fantasy XIII came out in the end of 2009, that game sold around the exact same amount. I think it was 1.6 million, and yet they consider that a success. So that shows you the double standard that Square Enix puts on their Western developers. They treat them differently, okay? The Square Enix, literally, their developers can spend 10 years working on a single game, and somehow Square Enix thinks that's fine. But delay a game for maybe a year or two, and suddenly you're in hot shit. You're in deep shit. Okay? That is the double standard that Square puts their developers on, and this basically collaborates exactly what we've seen in previous years with other Square Enix studios, Western studios, I should say. Now, of course, he was asked about the recent sale and as to why that happened, because not only did they sell Eidos, they sold it for $300 million. Far, far less than what it actually would be worth. Well, he has a theory. He said later on, and I quote, "If I read between the lines, Square Enix Japan was not as committed as we had we hoped initially. And there are rumors, obviously, that with all these activities and mergers and acquisitions, that Sony would really like to have Square Enix within their wheelhouse. I heard rumors that Sony said they're really interested in Square Enix Tokyo, but not the rest. So I think Yosuke Matsuda put it like a garage sale. So basically, what he's trying to do, what he's saying here is that they're basically trying to clean house the studios that they think are losing them lots of money, and basically just trying to prepare them to be sold by Sony. Now, of course, these are just rumors. Take it with a grain of salt, but like I said, it lines up with things. I could be wrong. It's like I said, it's a rumor, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt here, but it does kind of line up with what's going on at Square Enix right now, and they're trying to make themselves more appealing to Sony. And honestly, look, if that ever happens, I'm not happy with that at all. I'm kind of like, I don't like the idea of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. And I sure as hell don't like the idea of Sony buying Square Enix, or the one that constantly gets thrown around, which is Konami. Okay? So, really, it makes sense. But again, until anything is confirmed, just keep it as a rumor. That's it. So, some interesting stuff. If you want, I'd highly recommend you go check out the article. I'll leave it in link in the description. And let's move on to our next story. All right, and next up, we have another story from Bloomberg, this time about the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake, which was announced last year. I think it was last year. Anyway, and apparently, according to them, this is all rumor, so understand that. It seems that things aren't exactly doing well at the developer Aspyr Media, as apparently, according to Bloomberg, and this is a rumor, apparently there's been a lot of shakeups going on. Apparently, the game's art director, Jason Miner, as well as the design director, Brad Prince, have both been fired from the game. And apparently, a finalized demo of the game was apparently shown to Lucasfilm and Sony. But nothing has been said about any sort of decisions based on the contents, based on what was shown. Now, and because of that, apparently the game has been pushed back, and its release window has been pushed to 2025 rather than 2023 as it had been previously been announced. Now, here's the thing that gets me, is it actually lines up with something that happened only a few months ago. As I'm sure you probably have all heard of, one of the writers of the game, Sam Maggs, announced that she was leaving the project back in, I think it was like February or so. She had only been on the project for just a few months. And for those who don't know, if you don't know who Sam Maggs is, oh boy, she was like some nutjob feminist who claimed that she was like virtually raped in Grand Theft Auto 5, that the game had been hacked and all this kind of shit. It was so stupid. Anyway, she was on this project, and then a few months later announced that she was no longer on it. Which was actually kind of a good thing, because she actually admitted that she had never played the first game. So it's like, what's the point if you're gonna be put on a project to remake it? You should have played the original previously. If you haven't, then you don't deserve to be put on the project in the first place. But you know what? In my opinion, if it's delayed or eventually canceled, I think that's actually a good thing, because you know what? In my opinion, KOTOR does not need to be remade. It doesn't. Heck, it's already available on most systems, modern systems. It's on the Switch, it's on the PS4, the Xbox One. I even think the Series X and the PS5. There's no need to remake it. You know, look, I get it. There were games that came out in the PS1 era that got remade, and I get that, because unfortunately the early 3D graphics of that era haven't exactly translated well, and don't exactly look great if you upscale them and such. If you've ever put a PS1 game in an emulator and then just put up all of the graphical settings, you see this. It doesn't look very good. So it's understandable that games from that era get remade. But games from the PS2 era, like the 6th gen, 7th gen, that sort of stuff, those games do not need to be remade. they can be upscaled a bit. They could, with graphical settings put up, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to remake them, and KOTOR does not need to be remade. So honestly, I think even if it is delayed or eventually canceled, that to me is still a good thing, because again, it doesn't need it. The original is there. It's playable on modern systems. So just go play that. It's like waiting to play Sonic the Hedgehog on modern systems for that Sonic Origins when Sonic is available already on these systems. There's already a whole bunch of collections that you can get for them. So it's like, what's the point? There is no point. It makes no goddamn sense. So, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, these are just rumors. Nothing has actually been confirmed yet. But anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next topic. Okay, and next up, we have an update on the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, because Wave 2 has been announced. It's going to include 2 brand new cups. First off, you have the Turn-Up Cup, which each will include, of course, 4 different stages. You got, in the Turn-Up Cup, you got New York Minute from Mario Kart Tour, Mario Circuit 3 from Super Mario Kart, Calamari Desert from Mario Kart 64, and Waluigi Pinball from DS. And then you got the Propeller Cup, which includes Sydney Sprint from Tour, Snowland from Super Circuit, Mushroom Gorge from Wii, and a new course, Sky High Sunday. Now, I haven't gotten any of the passes, mostly because, honestly, I haven't touched Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in a long time. Probably since around the time I got it. I don't know. Like, Mario Kart games are fun and all, but it's like, it's kind of getting a little, how do I say? It's getting a little tiring, the fact that Mario Kart 8 is going on 8 years old, and we still haven't moved on from it, But the thing is, like, I still don't have, like, because I know, like, this is included with the, the online expansion pass. I don't even have that. So, like, though I have kind of hem and hawed about the idea of getting it, mostly because I'm looking at what they're adding to it now, and I'm like, okay, you got the Mario Kart DLC, and then you got the fact that they've kind of fixed the emulation on the N64, which is what really annoyed the hell out of me about that. So I'm like, maybe I will, maybe I'm not, won't. I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, if you're interested in that, it'll be coming out on August 4th, tomorrow. So definitely go check that out. Anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
Hello?
Hi.
Who is this?
You watching TV?
Maybe. Who is this?
What kind?
Well, it's big.
27-inch?
Yeah?
Picture in picture?
I guess so.
Swivel base?
How'd you know?
Under a white ceramic duck wearing a yellow raincoat?
Where are you?
Open the drapes.
One TV-obsessed Gecko. Revolutionary 3D graphics. Free roaming gameplay. It's Guess, Enter the Gecko. Now on Nintendo 64.
Alright folks, and we're back, and first up on our last round of stories, we have some interesting news coming out of Nightdive Studios. Always enjoy their work, especially their remasters. Turok, Quake, Power Slave I want to get, but Doom 64 was fantastic. And it seems that they're actually hinting at more stuff to come. So recently, a Twitter user named Cathode Raid 2 put out a tweet saying you can only pick one game from each row, 90s FPS edition. And it's literally just a grid of nothing but 90s shooters. And, well, it seems the CEO of Nightdive, Stephen Kick, quote retweeted them saying, "We've remastered 4 of these with a few more on the way." Now, of course, the 4 that he's referring to are, of course, Quake, Doom 64, Power Slave, and Blood. And so now a lot of people are speculating as to what else there's going to be upcoming. And, well, it seems he might have accidentally teased it. May or may not. Keep it with a grain of salt. But recently, he posted on Twitter again. Same guy. Posted on Twitter again a tweet that says, "You love to see it," and it's of a 4x3 computer monitor with Star Wars Dark Forces on it. And a lot of people are now speculating that it's a hint of what's to come. Of course, nothing has been confirmed yet, understand that. But honestly, I would love an HD remaster of Dark Forces. It's a fantastic shooter, and in my opinion, it's canon. Don't give me that bullshit about, Rogue One? No. We all know Kyle Katarn was the one who retrieved the Death Star plans, okay? Now that I think about it, isn't there a source port of the engine the Dark Forces runs on? I think there is. I think that it's not fully finished yet, but they're still working on it. But it's so far, I think it is usable. But anyway, it kind of has me wondering about other games I'd like to see them remaster. Not just shooters, because I mean, yeah, there are some shooters I would love to see them remaster. Hexen, Heretic, Wolfenstein 3D, Shadow Warrior. Actually, I think Shadow Warrior already got a remaster. GoldenEye. That all stuff would be great. But personally, I would love to see them take on, and it's not a shooter, but I would love to see them take on the Elder Scrolls games, or at least one in Arena and Daggerfall. Because those games haven't really gotten anything of a remaster. They've been re-released over the years, but they've never really gotten, I think, a true remaster. And I think Nightdive could pull it off. I mean, it would be a massive undertaking because you're talking, those games are huge. Arena's big, but Daggerfall is just, whew. That game's a monster. The amount of shit you could do in there, the map size alone dwarfs any game, I think, until maybe like Minecraft and No Man's Sky. Like, literally, that's how big the map is. Okay? Up until those 2 games, it was the largest map in any single game. If you want it in comparison, because I remember someone did, there was a map you could find on the internet that shows this, where if you want a real good comparison of how big Daggerfall actually is, there's a small island in the middle of like the sea in the map, and that small island can actually contain is roughly the same size as the maps for Cyrodiil and Skyrim in Oblivion and Skyrim. Yeah, that's how big Daggerfall is. It's just ginormous. But then you got all the other extra stuff you can do in it. You know, there's like hundreds of guilds and religions to join. There's hundreds of towns and cities to visit. You can even buy your own ship. That's how awesome Daggerfall is. I would love to see that get remastered. But anyway, I'll no matter what it is, I'm looking forward to it. They always do a great job. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, so this next one, it kind of annoys me a bit. So last week I talked a bit about, you may have heard of the game Massage Freaks because I talked about it on the Gaming Forecast. Wait, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Oh crap, I can't remember. Anyway, but I mentioned it on the Gaming Forecast, and I mentioned how there was sort of a controversy about it because people were trying to get it removed from Nintendo's eShop. Well, unfortunately, they were successful because Nintendo has officially pulled the game. Now, thankfully though, it will actually be coming back because Curate, the developers of the game, have officially come out and said that they are going to re-release the game on PC as Beat Reflex, which is actually short for reflexology, which is a type of therapeutic massage. And of course, that's available right now on Steam. Now, the thing is, I looked at some gameplay footage of it, and really, it doesn't look that bad. It's simply just sort of a rhythm game where you're playing masseuse. That's the best way I could kind of describe it. And yeah, there is some sort of like, I can't say really lewd because it's not porn. You know, it's not like there's actual nudity in this game, or at least from what I've seen, okay? I'm not sure if the Switch version is any different from this version or whatever. I don't know. But from what I saw in the gameplay footage, it seems like your typical Japanese game where, yeah, there's a little bit of cheesecake, but for the most part, it's not pornographic. All right? It's just a little etchy. Is it even etchy? Can you even describe it as etchy? Anyway, I'm getting myself all crazy out of this. Anyway, and you know what? I think it's a bit ridiculous the way games are now, because you can't release anything that has any sort of sexualized content in it without having a couple of nut jobs freaking out over it. And I think it's a bit ridiculous. I think it's nothing more than a retread of what we saw 20 years ago when you had parents and politicians going after violent video games and blaming every horrible thing that happened in the world on them. That's it. It's nothing more than the new it's the new violent video game panic. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And you have a lot of people who probably were like, oh, I'm not going to be like that. Yeah, you're just exactly like that. If you're freaking out over sexualized content in a game, let me tell you something. That to me is not a sign of maturity. That is how like a child reacts. It's to me, it's nothing more than modern day grade school cooties bullshit. All right. And people who freak out and are like, oh my God, this game's got sexualized content. Who cares? If you don't like it, then go play something else. Just fucking deal with it. My God, that's how it used to be, folks. If there was a game that had content you didn't like in it, you just didn't buy it. And I think the main difference between now and, of course, 20 years ago is the fact that 20 years ago, we didn't have social media. So really, if people who flipped out about this about like violent video games and such, really, their only avenue was basically to go out and actually protest the game or go on the news, local news, and that was basically it. But now you have these terminally online losers who spend all day creating bot accounts, harassing publishers and platforms into removing content that they don't like. Because, you see, the thing is, like I said, 20 years ago, it was like, I don't like this, therefore I'm not going to support it. But nowadays, it's, I don't like this, therefore this content should never exist. It's a deranged, self-centered attitude. And it's honestly about time publishers realized just exactly the type of deranged lunatics they're absolutely dealing with. Okay? But they don't, and they probably never will because there are a bunch of suits who don't care. They just see, oh, a whole bunch of people hate that we are putting out this game, therefore we're going to censor it, we're going to remove it, despite the fact that all of those accounts and people are maybe like, I don't know, 5 people running bot accounts. Because that's the thing, you can spend hundreds and even thousands of dollars on just creating bot accounts. It's actually, there's a whole bunch of services that allow you to do that. So, anyway, with that being said, let's move on to the next story. Okay, and for our last story, we have an update on Steam. That's right. Apparently, Valve has decided to update their some of their guidelines for game developers and publishers on Steam regarding graphical asset capsules. And if you don't know what that is, that's basically the banners and thumbnails you see on games on like the Steam storefront and such. So basically, it appears that they're limiting what can be put on there. So it says here, it actually has 2 rules. Number 1, content on base graphical asset capsules on Steam is limited to game artwork, the game name, and any official subtitle. For clarity, this means, and then there's sub ones. Number 1, no review scores of any kind, including Steam reviews or external news sources. No award names, symbols, or logos. No discount marketing copy. For example, no on sale now or up to 90% off text. No text or imagery promoting a different product. This includes no marketing of sequels or other titles in the same franchise, and no other miscellaneous text. Now, according to Steam, the reason why they're adding these rules is simply just to make things clearer and more straightforward for customers to find and buy games that they're looking for. Now, I understand developers wanting to advertise that their game won awards and such, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine, but it can be kind of cluttered when you have a thumbnail that's got like all this tiny little text talking about how all the awards and review scores it has. You know what? It kind of reminds me of when they started doing that on games, on like physical copies of games, I should say. Like 10 years ago, they started putting all the awards and review scores on there. I remember Batman was infamous for this. Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Love those games to death, but my God, was the artwork on that cluttered with all sorts of review scores and awards and shit. It clutters up the artwork itself, and it just doesn't really look appealing. I get it. You want people to know that your game is well received, that it's a critical and a commercial success, but it can be a little bit cluttered, you know, especially when it comes to when you're advertising sales. It can be confusing, actually, because if your game is on sale, it's already going to show up on there. It shows up on the corner of every thumbnail whenever there's a sale on there with the percentage and everything. So if the game thumbnail itself has the percentage, and then the official Steam sort of listing has it with the percentage, people are going to think that it's a double that's added on top of that, you know? It can get kind of confusing. So I understand why they're doing that. People can disagree on it. I kind of agree on it as personally, because again, I like having cleaner logos and cleaner thumbnails. I don't like these box art or whatever you want to call it that has just cluttered with shit, because it doesn't look appealing like at all. Now, they do clarify a couple of things. In the second section, they said, and I quote, "We understand that partners are excited to talk about large updates and seasonal events, and customers are often excited to see these reflected in the game capsules. While this content is not allowed in base capsule assets, see rule number 1, we do support this use case through capsule artwork overrides with the following constraints. Must use artwork overrides, which includes text on a graphical asset. This must be uploaded as an artwork override with a length limit of 1 month. Most localize any text including on a graphical asset must be localized into at least the same set of languages supported by the game. Only to describe new content. The only acceptable additional text on a game capsule is words describing a major update to the game content, a new seasonal event, battle pass, DLC, or similar new content for the game." So there are some exceptions here. But once again, I agree with what Valve is doing here. Like I said, I understand you're excited for your game. You're excited that your game won so many awards and has gone so many high reviews, but it can be a little too cluttered, and it can actually kind of confuse people. So I see it as I see both sides of it. Okay, but personally, I think that I think Valve is actually kind of in the right with this one. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
TurboGrafx 16 is about to knock video games back into the Stone Age. It's 10,000 years ago. You're a cave dude. You are carnivorous. You've got to bonk 28 stages of prehistoric bad guys to rescue your excellent-looking princess. And you've only got one weapon. Bonk's Adventure, only on the TurboGrafx 16 system.
All right, folks, and we're back, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. You've been a lovely audience. Remember, if you liked any of the music that I played during this episode, links are in the description where you can go and listen to them, download them, buy them, whatever yourself. So anyway, I'll see you next week, and remember to keep gaming.